Hello guys, and welcome back to this new video. Today we are going to discuss the banality of evil. Some of you might be familiar with this concept, some of you may already know, in general terms what that refers to, and some of you may not. So here a premise is kind of like necessary. And the premise of that is basically that this is not just a philosophical concept, very much theoretical as many other concepts in philosophy, if not almost all of them, but it's a concept that has a profound application in our daily life. When we think about evil, when we think about somebody doing something deeply wrong to us, so we always imagine that as a form of revenge. We always imagine that to have such a vastity where you would think of such consequences that must be a deliberate act of really hurting someone, right? And I think that is something that might derive at times from the anger we feel towards a situation, and we never really consider ignorance as an excuse for that, right? We really never consider that simply we are not the target of that cruel action, because the moment we are impacted by that, then it becomes an act that is done against us. It's a form of mentality that really we can't get rid of, that has to do with our ego, because really when somebody hurts us, it hurts our ego. It menaces our existence in terms of what we think of ourselves and what we think we deserve. Okay. So we usually tend to think of evil in very epic terms. Something that we might not realize is that, for instance, if we think about all the women that are able to forgive their partners who have cheated on them, one of the things is like that sort of behavior is rarely interpreted as evil. Like the person gets hurt, but there are some excuses. In this case, it's not ignorance, but it's more, for instance, he was drunk, he didn't really understand what he was doing, which is sort of like a typical excuse that we tend to give, and that would attenuate the circumstances. But if you do interpret that sort of action as something that goes against you, as something that was deliberate against you, then you would be less likely to forgive it. And not only to forgive the action, but also to forgive the person that did it. So what that shows us in the case of the cheating partner, what that shows us is that sometimes people hurt us not because they really want to, but because of other reasons, where we are not really the target. They are trying to do something either for themselves or against themselves, but they're not considering in this case the partner as the target of their action. They're considering themselves as the target for that action. You could extend this reasoning to the point that even egotism as such is deeply hurtful. And if you don't think in those terms, well, think about the consequences of a deeply individualistic society where the motto is basically to think only and exclusively about yourself. Think about consequences that are not just in terms of people you could trust and people you cannot trust, but the kind of environment, the kind of like paranoia based and fed environment you would be living in. I'm not saying that it's not possible. I'm saying that there are possibly better ways of living in society. But for now, we're gonna go back to the point. the way the expression was born is interesting, because if you read other philosophers who have written on Nazism, on the Holocaust, on what happened in the Second World War, especially, you would find a lot of philosophers, although they're not, since Kant, I think, they're not very well known for having such strong positions, but you would find a whole host of philosophers basically just supporting the idea of death penalty. And even, you know, even in this case, you know, she's and the idea that this what happened with the Holocaust is an act of is a series of acts. It's an organized plan, but it's so evil that the best term to characterize this type of evil would be absolute. When Anna Arendt publishes the book, which is like 9 months after the end of the trial to Eichmann in Jerusalem, she is heavily criticized for this idea that evil is banal, that actually people hurt us for very banal, stupid, mundane reasons, because they cannot think critically about what they're doing, right? And either they don't want to or they cannot, because it's both too often. That's the conclusion that she arrives to by following Eichmann's trial. Now, Eichmann was not you know, in her view and according to what emerged from the trial, was not somebody who organized or had personal reasons to actually go against the Jews. That was not really who he was. He was a bureaucrat, and one of the explanations that he gave during the process was that simply he was doing his job. Now, this was a important sort of like explanation, because Eichmann himself tied this explanation to the idea that is reconnected to Kantian morals, that is, of doing their job regardless. Now I have to go back 1 second. Kant was not really like into you have to do your job, you don't have to do your job. But one of the concepts is that you have to do what is right. That's what Kant says. You have to do what is right regardless. If you enjoy doing something that is right, or if you don't enjoy it, and I mean not enjoy it so much in terms of feelings, but in terms of whether or not you have, for instance, advantages in doing what is right, then that should not be your primary goal. In other words, if you do an action thinking about the secondary effects of that action, then it's no longer a good action. You have to do what you have to do. And that sort of thing is what Kant said. And he was, of course, thinking about how do we justify doing right? What would be the rationale behind, you know, us behaving good or properly? And there is no justification, you know, because when you think about, oh, we could do what is best for the greatest number of people, which is the utilitarianism standpoint on the issue, you would realize that this perspective is not doing what is right. It's doing what's better than other options, but it's not doing what is right. And Kant was a categorical philosopher. And when Eichmann quotes Immanuel Kant during the trial, that is like some sort of eye-opening moment for Anna Arendt. because she realized how much misinterpretation there's behind Kant's words, and how much, this was not, Eichmann was not the guy of the imagination, in the collective imagination of the Jews, probably, and the entire world, right? Not just them, actually, the of the Jews, or the entire world for that matter. But he was a simple, sort of simple guy who was following bureaucracy. And that is what sprang up the idea that evil is banal, and that is the greatest danger of society, right? Because first of all, we live in a sort of paradox where, on the one hand, you can act right, you can act in a way that you are fair, then you are following universal maxims and universal laws, and then you act according to the law, that you don't do harm to other people, and you don't do to other people what you wouldn't want other people to do unto you. You could act like that, but if you do decide to take that path, there's no justification. It's most of the times it's inconvenient, but besides that, there's no rational justification that could tell you why you should take that path. Besides the fact that that is the right thing to do. Now, it all depends on your, I guess, position, on a personal position of what is right and what is wrong, and if you do believe in that, which is a whole different scenario here to discuss. But there's no justification. So on the one hand, that is unjustifiable as a position, in rational terms. That's unjustifiable, right? You would do it to get benefits, right? Even if you argue for that position, that already is no longer doing what is right, at least not in Kantian terms. So on the one hand, this is completely unjustifiable. You have to justify it because you believe in right and in doing the right thing, which, you would think that humans would believe in that. Originally, innately, they would believe in that. On the other hand, if you don't have a rational justification for that, then you could end up explaining one of the greatest horror of humanity in history just by arguing the thesis that evil is banal. There might not be a long-term plan or a grand construction behind an immense amount of pain, sorrow, hurt, genocide, killing people, humiliation, and we could continue on, but you get the point, right? So even behind the Holocaust, you would find, metaphysically, in terms of what is evil, the fact that evil is completely banal, which you could also apply to your own life. So guys, that's it for this video. I think I was already too long, so let us know your comments, of course. Let us know what you think, and we'll talk next time. In the meantime, if you have enjoyed this video, don't forget, of course, to comment below, to like and subscribe, and we'll talk next time. Bye!